Yes, welcome to the August 10th edition of the State Project here on what is it? It is my YouTube channel. No State Project. Glad to be with you from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. Wow, what a big week we've had. But before we get into any of that, I want to thank all the continued support that we get for the show. It is needed. It is much appreciated. I won't go through the list of everybody, but of course, Chris and Dan and Bill in New Hampshire and Don and Eyal and Nelson. Appreciate all the support. Rob in Seattle. If you want to help support the big show, it's markstevens.net. And also markstevens.sells, S-E-L-Z, markstevens.sells.com. Yes, aloha, mahalo, our friends in Hawaii. And I haven't said this in a while, but this show is about anarchy. That's why, hence the big banner there in the back. And I'm using a black flag because it's too much, not worth the hassle. Just anarchy, period. And anarchy meaning an absence of rulers and no ruling class, in that it is wrong to lie, steal, kill, and cheat, really basically to control other people. And it doesn't help to call yourself a government. Well, it's the government, Mark. What's the government? Well, we're the government. No, it's wrong. If it's wrong for me to force strangers in the community to give me money, even under the guise of helping them, then it's wrong for everybody. I don't buy this we don't, as an anarchist, at least my view it is, I don't buy into this nonsense that there are a small group of people in the world that have a moral right to do what is immoral. Okay, that what is criminal for you and I is perfectly legitimate for them. No, we reject that. It is those who point fingers and will mischaracterize anarchy that think that, especially at least if they have a vested interest in that and having a ruling class, that will say that anarchists, we are the extremists. We're the problem. No. We want the rules to apply to everybody. Statists and people who support that kind of in a ruling class, they don't believe that the rules do or should apply to everybody. And we reject that as an anarchist. So also with the website markstevens.net, if you are interested in learning how to effectively defend yourself in court, we have Government Indicted, the book. It's been out for more than a few years now. And scripts. It has a whole model for how to effectively deal with bureaucratic attacks, whether you're administrative in court or not, or maybe, before, there's even an attack, because sometimes these people, you can reach them on a human level, and I always advocate just asking questions. Look, you didn't just pull this assessment out of thin air. You can actually validate or prove that your claim is true using facts and evidence, right? It's not speculation. Oh, well, yeah. And you wouldn't pursue a claim that you couldn't actually prove, right? You wouldn't be making excuses. You don't have to prove it, right? Oh, and then you start asking them the questions, and then they're not able to support it. And their first knee-jerk reaction is just to basically, well, I'm a fungal, we don't have to prove that. Whoa. You already said you wouldn't pursue a claim you couldn't prove, because that would be unfair. And you're a fair, honest, and due process kind of guy. So someone's saying a lot like shadow boxing. I would say the shadow boxing is cool, but to really hone your craft, you got to spar. You actually have to be you have to spar. So that's where the role playing is not shadow boxing. Shadow boxing is doing it yourself. Sparring, or the role playing, which I recommend highly. I'm glad I think that's what you're bringing up. Is definitely something that is necessary. And yes, now that things are getting back to normal, I'll have to get back on the Discord and get a day, maybe Thursday again, where we do a regular role-playing sessions. And you're welcome to call into the broadcast. It's 218-632-9399 if you want to discuss dealing, questions with court, or if you want to do some short role playing. Before I get to, all right, so it's 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. Someone's Cop Block Hot Springs is saying, hey, Mark, if you notice narcissists exhibit the same tactics as judges and vice versa, well, that's because most judges are narcissistic. And if they weren't narcissistic when they put that stupid robe on, then the job creates makes them narcissistic, because they're given this title. They sit 4 feet off the floor. Everybody has to rise up when they get in there, or they could be held in contempt. And speaking of, they have contempt power. They have absolute authoritarian power over everybody in that building. It is absolute. They can do whatever they want. And the automatons with guns will carry out their orders. As mentioned recently, I reported that somebody was physically in the court for a hearing. The judge issued a warrant for his arrest that he wasn't there. He's standing in. The bailiff knew he was standing there because he was putting handcuffs on him. Still executed the warrant. Why? We was just doing our job. I know that was pretty bad. So yeah, I've actually written a whole book that has the sociopathic or malignant narcissist attitudes and behavior of judges and prosecutors. So I would recommend Cop Block Hot Springs to read Government Indicted. Available at markstevens.net today. So before I get into the calls, I have to discuss the latest. Now, some people have said that I called it. There was nothing unusual in predicting that Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted and also currently, it was alleged he had additional charges of child molestation and sex trafficking, child sex trafficking. It didn't take a genius to predict that when he was as being held for trial, that he was going to be suicided. Suicided, I should, for those who were watching the stream. I don't believe for a second it was suicide. And if it was suicide, it was still homicide in that he was pressured to do that. So Jeffrey Epstein was found unresponsive yesterday in his New York jail cell and was transported to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. Some have been reporting that he was on suicide watch. That was wrong. Now, on Thursday, there were documents that were released. They were unsealed documents. So hundreds of pages of court documents were unsealed Friday in New York federal court, alleging new details of sexual abuse claims against Jeffrey Epstein and several associates. At the heart of the documents connected to a 2015 defamation case are allegations made by a woman, Virginia Jeffrey, I'm going to mispronounce that, who has claimed that Epstein kept her as a teenage sex slave and that he was assisted in his efforts by a British woman, Giselle Maxwell. He had pleaded not guilty in July to charges from New York federal prosecutors after an indictment accused him of sex trafficking dozens of underage girls, as some as young as 14 years old. Maxwell hasn't been charged. Hopefully that will be soon. So these documents were released. And then he's found dead. They had already done a seizure of a lot of documents. They got into a safe in his Manhattan mansion, and there were CDs with child porn, where these were videos or pictures of children that have further come out and accused him and others, undisclosed co-conspirators, given immunity by Alexander Augusta, who got a really nice gig as Trump's Secretary of Labor. Doing a great job. The best Secretary of Labor and he knows more about the Secretary of the Labor job than anybody. And so he was doing a bigly job. Yeah, so that's what they're all together. So it's no feat of brilliance for me or anybody else to have predicted that Jeffrey Epstein, where there was, of course, Trump was good friends with him, Prince Andrew, and there are pictures of Miss Jeffrey with Prince Andrew while she was a minor. That doesn't prove it, but there were other allegations. So he had information and damaging information, because why else, for some very high profile people, because why else? I mean, look, only the rich and powerful, the elite and parts of and members of the ruling class, they're the only ones who get to be unnamed co-conspirators given blanket immunity. If you're one of the plebes like me, you do not get blanket immunity for heinous crimes. And I'm not looking for that. So it's no surprise that Jeffrey Epstein turned up dead in his cell yesterday. So it was reported that he was on suicide watch. No, he was taken off suicide watch on Thursday. So the next day, he allegedly kills himself. Yeah, right. And it's the end of the criminal case, because he was the only one indicted. Maybe if they finally indict this co-conspirator, Maxwell, Giselle Maxwell, maybe there could be a trial. Maybe if they unseal and we find out who the unindicted co-conspirators were that were given immunity by Alexander Acosta, maybe then they'll be, oh, what am I talking about? What am I talking about? The elite do not go to prison. And by some chance, someone like Jeffrey Epstein is arrested, they wind up getting suicided. So Prince Andrew is one of many that is involved here. There are others. The documents unsealed Friday were produced as a result of a lawsuit Jeffrey filed against Maxwell nearly 2 decades after her alleged abuse. They include new allegations by Jeffrey that she was instructed by Maxwell to have sex with former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson and former U.S. Senator George Mitchell, among others. Gee, all that information comes out, and he turns up dead. Yeah, okay. Suicided. It's a wonder they didn't pop him twice in the back of the head while he was in jail. Somehow we got because that's what cops have said that. Somehow we got a gun. Yeah, I patted him down, put him in the back of the patrol car, and I couldn't believe it. She shot herself in the face. Oh, no. In fact, I forget the girl's name, but she wound up shooting herself in the back of the head while she was handcuffed. She got a gun. And okay, I reported about that a number of months ago. I apologize that I don't remember the name. In a statement Friday, Mitchell called the claim false, adding, "I've never met, spoken with, or had any contact with Miss Jeffrey." That sounds an awful lot like another one of these co-conspirators. Oh, that's right. That's right. Mr. Alan Dershowitz. He initially said that it was completely false. He never met, spoke, or had any contact with these underage girls, these children. And then when more evidence and documents comes out, well, I got a massage, but that was it. I did have contact, but it was only a massage. How creepy is it for a 60-year-old man to get a massage by a 14-year-old girl? I'll let you decide. A spokesman for Richardson called Jeffrey's allegation completely false. See if that's going to go the same way as Mr. Alan Dershowitz, so he'll backpedal. Well, yeah, there was some contact, and I did see them on a number of occasions, and I did have a massage, but that was it. To be clear, in Governor Richardson's limited interactions with Mr. Epstein, he never saw him in the presence of young or underage girls, spokesman Madeline Mahoney said. Governor Richardson has never been to Mr. Epstein's residence on the Virgin Islands. Governor Richardson has never met Miss Jeffrey. Sure, well, we'll see. Well, We shall see. Then again, I'm figuring since he's already dead, the evidence is going to go and it'll turn out that the evidence will have been destroyed. So that's another one of these things where you don't have to be a genius to figure it out, that this is going to result in the same number of convictions as, let's say, like, Iran-Contra, where George Bush just pardoned everybody. Well, just pardon them. Or even the more nefarious, the Franklin cover-up. Yeah, conspiracy of silence. Check it out. This made front page news and then disappeared. This is in the late 80s. This is nothing new. Pizzagate is real as far as the government people like Bill Clinton and Epstein. And so look that up. This is so common. And what is just as common as the sex trafficking of children in the involvement of government and the elite is the cover-up. I mean, do we hear about the Panama Papers anymore? You know, and the reporter, the journalist who uncovered that was the one that murdered. Now, I know it may have been for another story she was working on, because she was working on something for about the mafia in Malta. But she died. She was killed for being a journalist. So someone's saying Stahl is just finding out now that Jeffrey Epstein was suicided. So again, for those, when I say suicided, it was either he was straight up murdered or he was pressured into killing himself. And we know intelligence agencies will do that. We know that the evidence came out with Martin Luther King was pressured to kill himself. Yeah, I tell you. So just like all the facts that stand against someone like Captain Bonespur, the emoluments, the making tens of millions of dollars in violation of the emoluments clause. No, nothing's going to happen. He's an unindicted co-conspirator in Michael Cohen case. Michael Cohen is sitting in prison. The only reason why he wasn't indicted is because he's the president. Nothing is going to come of it. Nothing. And this is why we have to tear down and get rid of the ruling class. Because nothing happens to these people. Yeah, I know. Well, Jeffrey Epstein wound up being killed. Yeah, he was the sacrificial lamb, because all the other guys like Prince Andrew, Alan Dershowitz, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Richardson, none of these guys, none of them are going to see the inside of a jail cell. It's over. Hopefully maybe they will charge this Giselle Maxwell. Maybe the civil suits against his estate, because he had a lot of money. He may not have been technically a billionaire, but the guy had a lot of holdings. So maybe a lot of information will come out in the civil suits. Oh, but we know someone who was raped as a child accused Donald Trump, and she withdrew her suit because she was getting death threats. So I don't know. I'm going to err on the side or say that just as history has proven, not a damn thing is going to happen to the members of the ruling class. See, it's not, hey, good, it's good to be the king. It's good to be a part of the ruling class, because you can do literally whatever you want. Whatever the hell you want. And speaking of, this came out on Reddit. It's actually an old story. It's 2 years old, but it does bear some, because this is not where they're part of the ruling class. They are the useful idiots for the ruling class, the police. Not all, but hey, look, there are occasionally you have a police officer that does the right thing and blows the whistle, and they have their careers destroyed sometimes overnight. But here, again, this is back in 2017. This story came out. Why? Yeah, October 2017, where the New York Police Department has not bothered to back up data on millions of dollars worth of property it stole from New Yorkers, a surprised Manhattan Supreme Court judge learned Tuesday. That's insane, Judge Arlene Bluth explained in court, according to Courthouse News. The revelation included a civilian NYPD tech employee's affidavit, reaffirmed concerns that have brewed for years that the NYPD civil forfeiture process, twice ruled unconstitutional, lacks an accountability system to track, protect, or rightfully return personal property. Because that's not the point. The NYPD is supposed to return property seized during an arrest once a criminal case ends, so long as the person has a signed release from prosecutors. But public defenders say these requests are often ignored without consequence. That's what I said. To get rid of the ruling class, we got to get rid of the compulsory nature of the support, and you have got to, at bare minimum, you have got to get rid of immunity for these lawyers called prosecutors and judges. You cannot have an honest, ethical system when there is immunity. Absolute immunity. So what happened here was somebody was innocent and had $4,800 worth of cash taken from him. And when he went to retrieve his money, he was told it was too late. The money had been deposited into the NYPD's pension fund. Oh, so you can't take it out and just give it to him. So again, this is, and I'll have these links, of course, in the in the show notes for the video. How much? Look, the evidence is right there, but maybe we have kind of what is now? I'm drawing a blank on the boomerang effect, or the. Where the studies are showing that when people are given the cold hard facts, that they tend to dig in deeper and double down on their wrongful opinions and wrong views of the world. They won't update their map of the the map of the world. They dig in and they believe it more. It's like saying against Trump. It just no matter how much evidence you have, it doesn't matter. He's their guy. Doesn't matter what he's done. He could be raping children. Doesn't matter. The economy's good. Unemployment. But there's enough of us out there that will address the facts, and they will change their view of the world and their opinions based on the evidence. There's more than a few skeptics out there. I wish, it's the facts are there. They are a criminal organization. Forcing strangers to give you money under any pretext is just wrong. And they protect themselves. They put out these rules that they'll kill us for. They will put us in prison. They will destroy our lives for these rules. But they don't apply to them. That's the ruling class is the problem. All right, let's get to the phones. I hope we don't have any sound issues here. He's been on the show before. We've got Rock in Washington. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Mark, it's Rock. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. I tell you, I love the show. I'm not trying to pander to you. I'm really, really impressed with what you've been able to come up with, and your quest to help other people kind of navigate this system and hopefully bring it to its knees eventually. But keep up the good fight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
In regard to the Epstein thing, I mean, that rabbit hole is so deep, you better have a backup chute if you're going to jump into that. When you get to the bottom, there's probably a tunnel to Congress at the bottom of that rabbit hole.
Sure. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, they may. Hey, at the bottom of that rabbit hole, there may even be a rare photograph of Joe Biden not sniffing the hair of some pubescent girl creepily. I mean, they might have a photograph that's that old and that rare. It could be like Cave Dweller. It's so obvious to anybody who's paying attention that The fix is in. As you just mentioned, the ruling class has everybody by the short and curlies, and they do whatever the hell they want. And that's what I'm trying to get my friends who are so caught up in this left-right paradigm to understand. That, look, when you fight R versus D, L versus R, that's the wrong fight. It's us versus them. And I'm trying to get people to understand that. And you've been a really good beacon for me because you've given me a lot of good talking points in that regard. So thank you.
I appreciate it. What kind of resistance do you encounter, though, generally?
A lot of it is they'll hang their hat on one specious fact that they got from MSNBC or CNN, and they'll just cling to this one mantra. It almost becomes their credo, right? Where it's, yeah, but the polar ice cap is melting, kind of thing. And the evidence shows that there's more ice in the polar region right now than there has been in a while. And I always ask them, well, if this is such a catastrophic problem, why were there vineyards in the north of England during the medieval period? And they don't have any answer for that. I said there was no significant population, and it was no industrialization. So they could never support vineyards in the north of England today. So it just proves to you that the climate's been changing since the dawn of time. And we've only been able to keep good records on climate for about the past 60 or 70 years. Has the instrumentation been quality enough to make really good assessments?
Well, we're
talking about
that's not the only one.
Thousands of years.
But that's not the only way to do that. And I don't want to get onto a global warming or a climate change thing, but that's not the only thing that they use. There's many ways that they can go in. Even though you couldn't, we didn't have the technology of 2,000 or 10,000 years ago. You can go into the rings of trees. You can go into sediment deposits and stuff. There's geological, as well as looking at taking samples from, let's say 40 meters down or more on in ice. And so the ice, once you extract that, you can. So there are ways to do that. I was getting
you get core samples, but there's evidence that they've jury rigged the data. There's evidence of emails back and forth of these guys monkeying with the data, these climatologists. And my point is this. I'm a card-carrying environmentalist. I'm driving in an electric car right now as I talk to you. I built and designed my own passive and active solar house. I want to preserve resources. I want to preserve this planet as much as anybody else. And so that means not polluting. But this business of, we're going to do all these crazy things that we have no idea whether they're going to work, and we're going to spend trillions of dollars, and it's going to hurt the average person, and especially in third world countries, that's where I have to draw the line. Because the quote that I use for everybody is this: look, we didn't move out of the Stone Age because man ran out of stones, did we? So we're gonna solve this fossil fuel thing. We're gonna have new, cool, renewable sources of energy. It's going to happen. So all this hand-wringing, and we need the government to do this, and Ocasio-Cortez is going to tell us all how to live. Man, that really cuts against the grain of anarchy for me.
Well, sure, and I have my issues with government doing anything, but what I was getting to was when you're talking to people about anarchy and about getting rid of the ruling class, what kind of resistance do you typically get to that argument?
Well, the typical argument, and I've got to kind of take a step back because I was there myself years ago. I would always shake my head, oh, you've been watching too many movies. Or, so we're going to let the inmates run the asylum kind of thing, right? If there's no police, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be absolute bedlam. And I've now that everybody has a video camera, we're seeing what the police do to people. We're seeing the abuse of power. There are thousands and thousands of videos on YouTube of the police acting inappropriately and not upholding their oath to abide by and enforce the Constitution and protect our rights. They become the worst violators of our rights, and they are duty bound to protect them. So we see that that's not working. We see clearly that it's not. So that's the biggest argument I get from others is, oh, well, you can't let the police just run roughshod because they'll, the people run roughshod. Who's going to control that? And my response to that comes from Brian Young, who led me to you. He's the High Impact Flicks. Do you recall him?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And he says, well, wait a second. So you're telling us we need police because human beings are flawed and they're violent and they're evil. So you're saying there's somebody out there that can select a subsection of these same human beings and they're going to be fine. They're going to be okay. They're not going to be abusive. They're not going to be violent. They're not going to be evil because we handpicked them and they're going to be fine. So we can't trust the people at large. But this little subsection here, these are good people. These are your judges. These are your cops. And it dovetails perfectly into what you're saying about the ruling class and the elite and how they don't adhere to the same rules that we do. It's very obvious if anybody does any research at all.
Yeah,
there are two classes.
Yeah, there's two sets of books, one for us and one for the ruling class,
right.
and the the elite, the government.
Exactly.
And when people say when the accusation is that about police, well, we're not trying to get rid of, at least in my view, we're not trying to get rid of the services. Well, some yes, but not the basic services. So I believe, I would still want police type protection. I don't want them paid at the barrel of a gun, and I don't want them to have immunity. I want the rules to apply to them, whether they're on the job or whether they're off the job. So we're still going to have police, we're still going to have sanitation and stuff like that, but it's not going to be provided and should not be provided, and doesn't have to be provided at the barrel of a gun. It shouldn't be pay or go to prison.
Right.
And that's where, because if you're right, there are thousands of examples of police abuse just on YouTube. How many videos of such type of abuse do you have from private protection agencies?
Yeah, I don't. Well, I see a lot of these First Amendment auditors going out and going to private companies, being outside of a chemical plant, being outside, and the security from that chemical plant always comes out and hits them with, "Hey, what's your name? Who are you?" I mean, they get their chest pumped up real quick, and they're totally outside the scope of law. They're not allowed. You're completely within your right to photograph from public area to things that you can see. You cannot trespass people's eyes. And these guys come out, so they are full of piss and vinegar. They do think they're cops, and they do get way too big for their britches. So to answer your question, there's quite a bit of that feeling, and then they call the cops when they realize that they're up against somebody who's not a mental midget and quotes them 6802, and you can't detain me. I'm allowed to do public photography and so forth and so on. And when you stand up for your rights, they get all flummoxed and they figure, well, I'll call the guys with the badges and costumes to come over and they'll get you then.
Yeah,
so
but
I see quite a bit of it actually on First Amendment audit.
Yeah, however, but that's not killing people. That's not hurting somebody. That might just be being a douchebag, but it doesn't rise to the level of I can't breathe or shooting a 12-year-old because they have a plastic gun. And I would say it would be on the conservative side for us to say that there is maybe 1,000 to 1 difference between the number of times police have hurt and abused and killed people compared to private individuals because they know that they can be held accountable.
I think you're absolutely correct.
And I said,
pardon me for interrupting you.
No problem. I on the last show, I reported that some study was done based on government statistics that the 6th leading cause of death for adult American men between 24 and 29 is police use of force. That is horrific.
Right.
It doesn't say
it is horrific.
There isn't even in the top 10 where it said private protection services and security guards.
Right. Right.
Not even.
No,
Not even.
your point is well taken. I'm just saying that once you give people a badge and some kind of power, whether they have a gun or not, these private security guys, they start to get really full of themselves.
Oh,
and I'm obviously dead against it. You're right. It's mostly douchebaggery, but if they thought they could get away with it, I think they would act the same as cops, quite frankly.
And that's a big thing. I think you're what stops them from being as aggressive and violent as cops is they do not have immunity. They do not have people who, because the rules do apply to them. They don't apply most of the time to the cops. And that's the thing.
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I'm going to monopolize the call because I really enjoy it when you have conversations with others. The reason I called in today is I had a firsthand experience with a crazy scenario, and I want to get your take on it.
Sure.
I have Canadians buy electric vehicles and import them into Canada, export them from the U.S. and import them into Canada. I had a client that purchased a vehicle from a dealer, made an improper declaration because I assume he was trying to elude some of the sales tax. I accompanied him to the border, and they detained me. He capitulated and said, okay, I paid a couple $1,000s more than I put down on my paperwork. They detained me. They seized my cell phone. They unlawfully detained me at the Canadian Border Services Agency for 6.5 hours, seized my phone, made me get them the passcode on it, and still have my property. What's your take on this? Well, I'm trying to get my property back.
Wow. They actually coerced you to give them the passcode for your phone?
I was flummoxed and I was in a bad situation, and I thought, well, I don't have anything to hide. And I gave it to them. And then they said, oh, see, we see 2 bills of sale on here from this guy. Like, hey, I just do what I'm told. I'm the messenger. And they said, well, you have a Nexus pass. You were in the car with him, and you should have known that this was an unlawful declaration. So we're citing you for an unlawful declaration. I'm like, I didn't declare anything. I didn't make any declaration. But when you're at the border, they have absolute power. It's worse than the police, as you know, when you're at border. So they kept my stuff. They did let me go. I missed a flight. I was supposed to have a flight that afternoon. They detained me. And I mean, they were just jerks about it too. Like, they have the ultimate power. They read me my rights and everything. They didn't arrest me, but they read me my rights, and they haven't contacted me.
Well, I understand you being, flummoxed. That's the best reason, though, I can think of to keep your mouth shut.
Right. I did keep my mouth shut.
No,
I didn't make any declarations. That's all I told them. That's it.
Was that? But you have to keep your mouth shut. You have to identify yourself, which is under threat, duress, and coercion. But you have to keep your mouth shut after that. And you gave him the phone.
Well, yeah, I know. I probably should have called in a lawyer at that point and said, what do I have to do? It's really, I looked it up online, and it's pretty. I'm telling you, most of the stuff I saw online said if they want your stuff, you got to give it to them.
I don't agree with that. And since you mentioned border, it says it just came out this week. And the headline is, border officers are arrested 5 times more often than other U.S. law enforcement. So
yeah, doesn't surprise me.
And so I know I'm Monday morning quarterbacking here, but I think after identifying yourself, keep your mouth shut, and don't object. Don't give them the passcode. So for anyone, I'm doing this knowing there could be an escalation. If your life is in danger, give it up. I'm not saying keep your mouth shut until they start beating the living hell out of you and maybe kill you. But you initially have to let them know, on advice of counsel, I have nothing to say. Nothing.
Right.
So did they take your phone?
Yeah, I wanted to do that, but I had the flight. I thought, hey, I have nothing to hide in this event. But I've helped over 100 Canadians, buy electric vehicles and bring them into Canada.
Sure.
The state. And I spent thousands of hours on the phone with people, educating them about electric vehicles. I mean, I'm doing a service for people.
Sure. And that's great.
And I'm not getting rich doing it either. And so this is what irritates me, is that somebody else wanted to save some money on taxes. It's none of my damn business. I don't concern myself with what other people do. If it's not harming me or somebody else, it's not my business.
Right.
So, and that's and what I told him is, I didn't make any declaration. How are you holding me for his declaration? I didn't make it.
Well, again,
so
border
they didn't have a good answer.
Border officers are arrested 5 times more often than other U.S. law enforcement because, it's like you said, how they are. It's at the border. Anything goes. I can't let you go. Just yet. The phrase "nothing to hide." There are lawyers that.
Oh, I know.
I urge everyone who has not seen the video yet. It's got tens of millions of views at this point, and it's by a lawyer or law school professor, and he goes through all the 7 or 8 or 10 reasons why all these excuses that people will use to start talking are no good. And one of the worst ones that we can use is, well, I've got nothing to hide. Now, we know that police officers are
allowed. And I watched the video before I gave it to him, so I'm the idiot.
Oh, man. Because we know police officers lie. It's a part of their job. They're allowed to lie. If you look at, again, the headline is border officers are arrested 5 times more often than other U.S. law enforcement. And I think we had to put in there because a lot of the time, regardless of what the cop has done, what kind of crimes they've committed, they're typically not arrested. But so maybe that they're trying to, they're doing a better job of policing the police here. But either way, that's not good news. So for you and everyone, the I have nothing to hide, that might help you in an argument with a Republican. It does not help you when you're being in a situation with a police officer. That's a Republican talking point. Well, if you got nothing to hide, you got nothing to hide.
No, I hear you. I after I gave it to him, obviously I was mad at myself, but it just, it all happened so quickly, and I was like, I said, what do you need? Oh, don't worry, we're not going to look at anything else that doesn't pertain to this, and that kind of crap. So yeah, exactly. Famous last words. Yeah. I'm an idiot. Don't worry, I'm an idiot. I want to know what I got to do now.
I don't think you're an idiot. I understand the situation. What property did they take from you now?
My phone. My
phone. They did take the phone. As long as they're using that as evidence, or they're gonna they're gonna download what they're gonna be using as evidence against this guy. So if they're gonna launch a prosecution against this guy, you may not get the phone back for quite a while. And
well, they said that he said he's already paid all his fees, and they slapped his hand, and he's off on his own. So I'm afraid to call him. Quite frankly, I haven't gone across the border since this all went down, because I could just see them pulling me over and arresting me, in Canada. This all happened on the Canadian side. This is not the U.S. side.
Well, if everything is taken care of, you should be able to call back and speak to someone there to get it back. They may have some stupid form you have to file, but if there's not going to be a prosecution, it's not necessary to be used as evidence, then there's no reason to keep it. So I would start with, a call, and they can direct you on if you need to file some stupid form or not. That's how I would start it.
Well, what I'm afraid of is if somebody else has filed an declaration that I've helped, and they want to go through this with minutia. I mean, this is the kind of crap that $200 on sales tax, and the guy with fuses coming out of his turban, goes across, unmolested, because they don't want to look like they're profiling people. It's just
escalated fast.
It's just crazy. What's that?
That escalated pretty fast.
Yeah.
Fuses coming out of his turban. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Well,
I'm
not everyone, and that's a common thing. The turbans are usually by Sikhs, not Muslims. So it's
Right.
it's a
Right.
misplaced Islamophobia for one. But
yeah.
wow. Okay. Well, that's
I'm
where
just
I
saying
would.
somebody that was doing something. It's probably a bad example, but I'm just trying to say somebody who's obvious, like this kind of stuff you were talking about before, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. Nothing happens with that, but they're worried about some guy that makes a declaration for $200 at the border. Like,
Sure.
the priorities are so effed up, it's not even funny.
That's right. They got to keep the ruling class in place. So but that's where I would start it. I would start it right there, and I wouldn't be making any kind of Islamophobic type of remarks like that with them.
No, and I apologize. That wasn't my intent. I was just trying to use an extreme example of whatever.
That was well, you certainly accomplished that. So, well, let me know what happens.
Yeah,
give them a call.
Hey, I have a lot of Sikh friends and others like that. I want to take everybody. If you're a danger to most of the quote danger to society stuff is all about taking away your liberty. So I just want to get everybody clear with that I understand that.
Cool. All right. Well, let me know what happens. Good luck, and let me know. I'll be live on Wednesday, so if you've made a call, let me know what you hear.
All right, I'll let you know. I may even retain an attorney and just have him call just to make sure that everything's hunky dory. Probably be worth a couple $100.
Okay. Either way.
All right.
Either way. Good luck, and let me know.
All right. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Rock in Washington. I guess I could take these off. We're pretty much near the end. I'm glad that he reminded me of that article about border officers being arrested at 5 times more often than U.S. law enforcement, because that just came out, and a lot of them arrested for pretty heinous stuff. So. We know that there's a lot of sexual abuse of children in the concentration camps or detention centers. At least I guess we'd have to do a follow-up to see just what kind of conviction rate that they're having, because we know when they charge regular people, they have like a 90-something% conviction rate. And it's certainly not a 90% conviction rate when it's one of them, if they're charged at all. So, all right. I'm glad that we were able to get that into the big show. But, I would say that when it comes to any kind of resistance to when we're talking about the ruling class and the problem that governments pose, like with anything, we got to start with some point of agreement. And I've always had success where I start with, look, if someone saying, why only an hour today? Well, I'm not doing if I'm not doing a regular commercial broadcast. So, I'm not going as long. I don't have as much time, and we don't have any more callers, and so this gives me more time to edit and whatnot. So, but I can address some issues on the chat. Somebody's saying here, what was it? Post-pubescent aren't technically pedo prey. Well, that's right. I forget what the actual term for it is. And people aren't arrested for pedophilia or even hebephilia, I think it is, for 13 to 16-year-old girls. They're arrested for child molestation. And that's why I make it clear that I don't refer to Jeffrey Epstein and Alan Dershowitz as pedophiles. I refer to Jeffrey Epstein as a child molester. And that's the thing too. Not all child molesters are pedos. It's a power move. It's a power move. That's why a lot of times when you see like 80-year-old women or even 80-year-old men or so are raped, it's not because the rapist is into 80-year-old women. It's a power move. It's the power dynamic and being able. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the point was that the point of agreement I can almost always get with people so that I can have a rational discourse, have an actual intellectual discussion, an argument, is starting from the ethics question. Do you believe that if I was to do things like the government and I force strangers to give me money, would you consider me a criminal? And that's a really good point of agreement. Now you can extrapolate from that, because then the issue is, but they're the government. Well, they're just men and women, right? Don't those rules apply to them? And you got to look at it linear. Like, at some point they weren't government. Okay. So you have to go back to, did they have the moral right? Was it morally right for them to become a government in the first place? So now you can start, you can, because of the violence, because it's pay or get shot, you're able to defeat any claims or arguments they may make that the people agreed to that. Now you've got the facts on your side, but wait, and you're just asking questions. Don't just tell people they're wrong. Let them figure out that their opinions aren't supported. And so when they say, but we, the people agreed. You're talking about all the people on the Eastern Seaboard at that time? All those people? Wasn't it pay or wasn't taxation always compulsory? Well, so where is the agreement? And like I wrote in Government Indicted, not everybody on the Eastern Seaboard agreed to the American governments. There were people called loyalists. There was a civil war fought alongside the war for independence. There were loyalists. There were a lot of people that did not want to have that. So you had Americans fighting Americans. Certainly, those who were poor had no say in it. You had government whether you wanted it or not. And just because, and you say, well, just because you can choose the form, doesn't that take away from bottom line, did the people on the Eastern Seaboard at that time, did they have a choice in whether there was government or not? Yes or no? I know that's not a leading question, but it's still a really good question. And someone who called into the show a year or so ago, that was a critic, she was alleging that the people did agree. Well, did they have a choice of whether there was government or not? Was there, now you can show historically that people voted for the federal constitution. Nobody was asked to vote on the state constitutions. And those predated the federal constitution by damn near 20 years. Was it 20? Let's say 18 years. 1770. Yeah. Okay. 1776. I'm sorry. 1770. So 13 years. So no one had a choice in that. There's no historical record of everyone given an opportunity. Do you want government? Yes or no? Because we know that most government didn't exist in Massachusetts for almost a year. From so let's say from about September, October 1774 to almost April 19th to 1775. So that you have to do it based on the facts. And when you do that, you'll be able to knock out every single claim that they try to make. And some of them will actually have to agree, you're right. They're a criminal organization, and it's because of these facts. That's why I talk about how can you prove that there is a citizen when you cannot overcome the facts that they're men and women who force everyone to give the money. Doesn't create obligations of allegiance, and it certainly doesn't create an obligation to protect. So, all right. I think we covered some pretty good ground here. I want to summarize, what we talked about. Jeffrey Epstein was suicided. Next thing we're going to know, none of the evidence is going to come out. No one's going to be prosecuted. They're not going to tell us who those 20 or so unindicted co-conspirators were that were given blanket immunity. This is all going to go away because that is what the elite does. They are not going to be held accountable. Yeah, I know Jeffrey Epstein, he was the fall guy. No one else is going to spend a day in jail. No one else. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong on that one, but we will see. Again, it's been the August 10th edition of the No State Project. I appreciate everyone's continued support of the show. If you would like to help support the show, it is much appreciated. It's at markstevens.selz, SELZ.com, and markstevens.net. I will be live on the Wednesday broadcast, so whatever I missed here today, I will get to on there. And if you're being attacked by a bureaucrat, please make sure to call in and we can discuss and help you learn and help so you can learn how to more effectively defend yourself against those baseless charges. Again, I'm Marc Stevens. Till we're live on Wednesday. Salud.